Is this thing on? Hi. Okay, I hope that you can hear me. So before I get started with the video, I kind of wanted to do like a quick catch up with you guys. I haven't posted on here since literally 2020, but I'm trying to change that around. So this month of October, I'm gonna try to do weekly uploads, but since it is October and spooky season is here, I decided I would go ahead and do a bonus episode, kind of. So I would do a bonus video every week in October, and those bonus episodes are going to be about just anything spooky related. So for today's video, it is going to be spooky stories and encounters of Mexican urban legends and folklore. I tried to choose the spookiest and like the creepiest ones. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I don't want to talk for too long before the video, so just keep an eye out for more videos to come for spooky related stories and also regular lifestyle vlogs. So let's go ahead and I also actually have my mummy mug here. This is just a regular ginger tea because my stomach is hurting just a tiny bit, but we're gonna push through, drink some ginger tea, get cozy. So grab a blanket, grab some food, because this video is gonna be juicy. So let's get started. I hope you enjoy it. I'm scared. So these are all from Reddit, and I just went in, selected a few stories that I thought were the best in my opinion, and I hope you guys like them. Okay, so for the first story, we are going to talk about La Llorona. In August, I went on my 2-week trip to Mexico. I was ready to meet my distant relatives, which I was very excited for. Towards the end of my stay, my relatives suggested we stay at an Airbnb to experience the beach life and for it to be more of a chance to get to know each other. We rented it for 5 days so we could have a little vacation. On the first day, me and my cousin saw sightings of a little boy who wasn't a part of our group and was often seen behind objects in the corner of our eyes. We both brushed it aside until nighttime. When night came, it seemed that I was the only one who couldn't sleep and would stay up all night. Not because of the newer environment I was in, but because I felt like someone was watching me. On the third night, I could not fall asleep for the life of me. My fear then grew. Even though I couldn't see anything, I felt something bad was happening or going to happen. I felt nauseous, anxious, and terrified. It got so bad to the point where I had to call my boyfriend for comfort, and he offered to fall asleep on the phone. I did eventually, but no matter how much I tossed and turned, I still felt the fear and cold sweats running through my body. And that's when I heard it. Her wailing. And if you know anything about La Llorona, her cries let you know if you're safe or not. If you hear her cries nearby, she's far away. But if her cries are distant, she's nearby. For my case, the cries were distant. I immediately opened my eyes as I'm tucked in bed, scanning the room and looking at my siblings to see if they can hear her too. As soon as I realized they were in a deep sleep, I quickly started praying El Padre Nuestro and praying to La Virgencita. The more I prayed, the more she started sounding louder and louder. And that's when I shot out of bed and promptly looked around the room. No one. Nothing. Nothing else was in the room with me, but the fear in me stopped. The feeling of me being watched stopped. Then I was just left there with me and my reflection in the mirror. The more I looked in the mirror, I realized that there was a shadow standing right next to one of my siblings. But after a few seconds, it went away. I laid back down and processed what was going on, and 5 to 10 minutes later, I fell back asleep. I laid back down and processed what was going on, and 5 to 10 minutes later, I went back to sleep. In the morning, I spoke about it, and I was bombarded with questions. Did you hear her crying or wailing? Did you hear her far or distant? How'd you feel? Were you praying? Until my cousin asked me a question that made my blood run cold. Did you hear her scream for her kids? I nodded frantically, and she continued on saying how La Llorona only cries for her kids to a selective group of people, and how not many can hear her calling out to them. She then went on to say that La Llorona only calls for her kids around people she wants to take away the most. Ever since that happened, I'm not sure if it's some bad juju or if she's left a mark on me, but I've been dealing with blood pressure issues and my joints are constantly in pain. I've also been getting the worst migraines. I've gone to many different doctors and I'm getting medicated for it, but the medicine they're prescribing me is not helping and only worsening my conditions. I don't know if I should include this, but the night before the incident, I was hearing some weird shrieks in front of the Airbnb I was staying at. Every time I would enter and leave the house, the shrieks would only get louder and closer. I don't know if this is related to La Llorona or if it's apart from another legend that I'm not aware of. Okay, so before reading this, I never knew that apparently if you hear her calling her kids, I didn't know. I thought she does that for every person that she encounters. So that was interesting to hear. This next story is about witches, or las lechuzas. And these are Mexican witches that can shapeshift and are usually seen up in trees, either as owls or as women. I think sometimes they're also seen switching between one and the other. And I have a few stories. My uncle's wife told me this story. She's from a small town near her hometown in Mexico. Let's call her Rosa. Rosa said that one night past midnight, for some reason she looked out the window in her room and she saw something flying by. She made eye contact with it and came to realize it was a witch. So she panicked and closed all the curtains and tried to go back to sleep, trying to ignore what she saw. She said she usually wakes up around 6 in the morning to go to a corn mill nearby the house. She would always go so she can make some handmade tortillas. For some context, houses in Mexico usually have metal bars around the doors and windows, so keep this in mind when I say the next part. When Rosa woke up, she said her head was sticking out the window. She believes that the witch she saw tried taking her, and the only thing holding her back were those metal bars. And that's where the story ends. Okay, next story. My dad tells me this story from time to time. He's not the type to BS, and is especially convinced he knows what he saw. When my dad was around 19 or 20, he was on his way to work riding in a van with 3 other people. The drive was through a road high in the mountains, with little to no civilization at all. This was an everyday thing to him, so nothing was out of the ordinary. However, one day at work, around 9 or 10 in the morning, he claims to have seen a witch flying in the mountains. So this next part might seem silly, but it was like your stereotypical witch, an old lady wearing a hood and flying on a stick. He quickly told his coworkers, and he said that everyone saw it too. If you search up Bruja de Monterrey, that's the most accurate way to describe what my father saw. He says this was not a UFO, as you can tell it was a humanoid figure, and then it quickly disappeared as it flew over the mountains. I would ask his old coworkers if this story is true, but my dad lost contact with them ever since he moved to the United States. In the area where my parents grew up, it was believed that witches were very active and many similar sightings of them were reported. Again, my dad does not BS, and there's no reason for him to lie about this. Interesting. Okay, this is the last story about the lechuzas. And this one was submitted by someone named Matthew. Matthew was 19 at the time. Okay, so Matthew just moved back home to Texas as he was visiting his dad in Rio Grande City. His house was located inside his ranch. So one night, he and my stepmom got ready for a party. They asked me if I wanted to join, but I declined. I wanted to explore my dad's ranch. It's nothing fancy, just 12 acres. The sun was setting and I had my cousin's pistol for protection. We have a lot of hogs, snakes, coyotes, and wild animals in the area. I stayed out longer than expected, and before I knew it, it was pitch black outside. I had a flashlight app on my phone. Not that it did much, but it's better than nothing. As I'm walking back, I got the feeling I was being watched. I stopped and looked around with my flashlight, with my phone's flashlight, but saw nothing. As I continued walking, I heard rustling up ahead. I immediately drew my pistol, moving a couple steps forward, when this massive dark figure with a large wingspan flew over me. It scared me so bad that I pulled the trigger, but the gun didn't go off. This is the part that puzzles me. When I left my dad's house, I immediately racked the gun. Is it raked or racked? I don't know. As this dark figure flew over me, I had a clear shot, but the gun didn't go off. I racked it again, and the gun went off. Finally, I ran faster than I had before, but the image of the dark figure with the large wingspan kept replaying in my head. As I made it back to my dad's, it dawned on me that the figure might have been La Lechuza, a witch owl. Down here in the Rio Grande Valley, and being of Mexican descent, we believe in most of the Mexican folklore. Later on, a memory popped into my head. My grandmother told me a story when I was a kid similar to what had happened to me. She said that her father went to my great-grandfather's ranch, where my dad lives now, and while hunting for rabbits, he said he smelled sulfur, the smell of the devil, and saw a glowing pair of red eyes staring at him. He raised his rifle like me, but the gun didn't go off either. His rifle went off when the figure was out of sight. 2 incidents occurred in that same ranch. My encounter was different from my great-grandfather's, but how ironic both of our guns didn't go off when we both encountered a mysterious figure. Next up, we have some stories about duendes. I don't think I have many of these. Okay, so I have a few. Duendes. Next up, we have stories about duendes. So in case you don't know, duendes are often known as either trolls or elves. Some people have different opinions about them. They think that they can be friendly, and they sometimes help lost children find their way back home. Or if you see a duende, it can also mean that it will bring wealth or prosperity. On the opposite end, though, duendes are also known to be very mischievous and pranksters, and that they are sometimes evil as well, and that they can lure children and people into the woods only to never be seen again. I'm not sure if there's different types of duendes, and the nice ones are a different species than the bad ones, but in case you aren't familiar with duendes, that's what they are. Let me get started with the story. My dad told me a story recently that I've been really wanting to share. This is from back when he was a kid in Mexico. When my dad was a kid, he and my grandpa went to my grandpa's land to prepare the soil for planting crops. Bored, my dad wandered off to a nearby stream where he saw a bunch of human-like dolls playing around in the water. He said they looked like adults but smaller and with proportions like dolls. I'm not really sure what that meant, but okay. They splashed around in the water, and at times it looked like they were even walking on it. They signaled at him to come and play with them, and my dad ran over excitedly. He said he played with them for a while when my grandpa noticed that he had wandered off and went to go find him. When my grandpa found my dad seemingly playing alone by the stream, getting all wet, he got super mad and dragged him away. Apparently, my grandpa and grandma were never able to see the duendes whenever my dad would point them out. My dad still recalls looking back when my grandpa yanked him away and seeing the duendes waving goodbye at him. Oh, that's so sad. That's kind of cute. Okay, after that, my dad started seeing the duendes around the house. They'd pop out from behind the walls during dinner, and my dad would try to feed them scraps of food, much to my grandparents' annoyance. Eventually, they got worried and took him to a local curandera. She did a little ritual and told him to keep a secret behind his ear for a week. And then the duendes were gone. He never saw them again. My dad swears that it's all true, even though no one believes him and he's embarrassed about even telling the story. The only reason he told me was because my mom teased him about it the other day and I forced it out of him. I love these kinds of stories and really wanted to share. My aunts and uncles say duendes aren't always so friendly and told me some other creepy stories about them. Okay, so this is the last story of the day. Let's get to it. Everything happened when I was around 5 or 6 years old. I met the duende. I've never had a hyper imagination since my parents never let me have one. I was constantly yelled at to be realistic. I was never allowed to play pretend in the house either, and my parents never really played games with me or sat down to read to me. I was usually by myself most of the time. I'd play educational games with my sister at the time, but she was 3 or 2 years old, so there wasn't much we could actually play other than tag or make mud pies. My parents were immigrants straight out of Mexico. My dad was a carpenter who would abuse my mom. He made a little over minimum wage, leaving periodically for jobs hundreds of miles away from our small apartment. My mom, a happy housewife when my dad was away and miserable when he was at home. As a kid, I never knew how depressing my life was back at home. I just thought that was normal. Normal to hear your mom's cries and your father's angry words. As a kid, I remember playing by myself often. I did have friends, they were neighbors, but they were often in daycare, so I only got to play with them maybe an hour or two every day. But when I would play by myself, I remember talking to someone or something. I don't remember when I started talking to him, but I do remember his voice was high-pitched, almost cartoonish. I remember I'd always looked around to see where he was, but he really was nowhere. He'd always laugh when I'd give up. I don't remember how much of my conversations were with him, but when we'd talk, it'd always be outside. Sometimes he'd ask if he can come and visit me inside, but I'd always say no because my mom would get mad if I brought friends in the apartment only to make a mess. But as days or weeks went by of asking, I eventually gave in and said yes. He didn't show himself and he didn't speak when I agreed. Confused, I went back inside. After I said yes, he stopped talking to me. I'd wait for hours and nothing. So eventually I moved on. I went and started preschool and a lot of weird things started happening. Every day I'd wake up with several messy twist braids in my hair, which made my mom yell at me every morning because they were so difficult to brush out, and it didn't help that my hair was pretty long either. My mom figured my younger sister would mess with me and knot my hair. When I'd fall asleep, I would get yelled, even hit sometimes because the SpongeBob TV I had would be on, and thinking I was watching TV all night. Sometimes my things would go missing, my shoes, books, even some of my DVR tapes. My parents, friends, even my younger sister would feel like something would tug on their feet, causing them to fall down the stairs of the apartment sometimes. I would also hear knocking on my window in the middle of the night and find flowers, coins, even bugs on my windowsill. And one day, eventually, I saw him. My mom was getting all of us ready to head for a birthday party. She asked me to get my dress I was going to wear to iron it, and I walked in my room. I saw 2 little feet sticking out from my bed as if the thing was trying to hide. Spooking me, I ran to my mom, pale and frightened. My little sister was with my mom, and there was no explanation as to why 2 little feet would be under my bed. I told her there was someone under my bed, and she ran to my room, only to see that there was nothing there. My mom yelled at me, thinking I was joking. I started to cry and pleaded to her that I really did see someone under my bed. I described seeing what looked to be a little boy with knee-high socks and black shoes. My mom asked if it said anything to me, and I said no. Her face was pale from the fear, just like mine, thinking that there was a ghost or demon. She called a palero, a shaman in Spanish terms, a day after, and that's when he asked my mom if she has noticed weird things going on. And she explained that she has noticed me talking to myself and all the weird things I listed above. He then asked to speak with me. I told him about the voice and how I knew for a fact that the voice was male, and how he stopped talking to me when I said he could come visit me inside. He explained that I was being claimed by a duende, and that it had attached itself to me a long time ago when I was a baby, but was attempting to lure me in to take me. He also gave my mom instructions on how to keep him away and leave me alone. And after she did everything he asked her to do, I never once saw him again. I don't believe it was an imaginary friend, but to be honest, who really knows what is real and what isn't? I like to say I do believe in the occult, but at the same time, it could just be a defense mechanism my brain set up because of my abusive household. But either way, at the end of the day, this is just one story out of millions. Dang! So what are your thoughts? I hope that you enjoyed the stories that I picked out and that they were spooky and put you into that Halloween spirit. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the other future spooky videos that I'm making. The next one that I'm going to do is going to be over Project Stargate, that is also known as the Gateway Project. Leave a comment down below what story was your favorite, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye!